at 2D Corral here. One of the things that is one of the more interesting parts of the game industry right now is that there is no 2D clearly dominant platform game development. While right now, and many of you who were familiar with it for years, there was Torque and there was Unity and there were some others. So in 3D, Unity is pretty dominant right now. We don't know how long that will last, but it's definitely the case right now. In 2D, Flash was fairly dominant, and now is undergoing a lot of changes because of the ability to, or lack of ability to be on tablets and phones in the web browser. So we're seeing some strong 2D contenders come out, and some of them are represented here. So what I'd like them to do is go through some slides, and then we'll ask some questions. So the first one up is GameSalad.
Hi, so my name's Steve Felter. I'm the CEO of GameSalad. For those of you not familiar with GameSalad, we are a visual-based game creation platform. We use a drag-and-drop environment, and the first reaction I get when I say that is, well, you can't make very successful games if you're making drag-and-drop games. But we've had, so we're now close to 300,000 developers, added roughly 200,000 developers in the past year, built over 50,000 games. Of those, 8,000 games are on the iOS App Store. Last year, about roughly 15 to 20% of every game in the iOS App Store was built off our platform. And we've had over 60 games reach the top 100 in the iOS App Store, which may not sound like a very, very big feat, but it's actually pretty tough to get there. We've had 10 games reach the top 20, and we've had a game reach the number 1, number 2, and number 5. So it's definitely not the platform. Don't hate the platform. We've seen some great developers on our platform. And, you know, ultimately, our mission is to make game creation accessible to a much larger audience. And I think historically, game creation has been limited to those who know how to code, and you know, and particularly now with the Apple platform, fairly esoteric languages required to code there. So we're really opening this up to a much larger developer base. So we've kind of tapped into that audience and made it more accessible. And then we've also found people that are, you know, ex-Flash programmers now getting into mobile, and they really like using our product because you know, it's intuitive and it's also faster dev times, allows them to iterate faster in the market. And then now that we support Android publishing, native publishing, and we also support HTML5 publishing. So those are the three big platforms we think are going to win out here in the future, and that's what we're getting behind as a company. And then I guess on top of that, I think there's one more slide here that just shows you a little development comparison. But again, you know, you're probably familiar with this environment on the left here. You know, some form of scripting involved in creating these games. We've really approached it from a different angle and try to translate it into a visual environment that appeals to designers and creative professionals and those that really, you know, feel comfortable around the Adobe Creative Suite. Will find themselves very at home with GameSalad. And so. Again, we're opening up game development to a much larger audience and making it accessible to those that don't know how to code. And we're also allowing those that do know how to code multi-platform publishing and much faster times to develop. So that's GameSalad in a nutshell.
Thank you, and congratulations on a very designer-friendly engine.
So I'm from Ansca Mobile. We make Corona SDK. We're also a 2D game engine or app engine because you can make more than just games with Ansca with Corona. Quick rundown on Corona. We're also a cross-platform mobile development framework. You develop in Lua. You write once. One of the great things about Corona is that you do code, but it's very easy to use, and that's why developers of all skill levels really like Corona. You use a language called Lua that's very easy to learn, very easy to set up and start running with it. And the way we've abstracted out complexity makes it super easy to build really complex games if you want to do that. So for example, we have a video up on YouTube that shows that in 5 lines of code, you can add physics to your game. And it really is that easy. And you compare that to hundreds of lines of code to just getting set up on Xcode. So that's, you write once, you then, you know, add all sorts of services, physics, monetization platforms. We have a couple of ad networks built in. We have full Facebook integration. We have Twitter integration. There's a bunch of things you can add to your game, and then you publish to the major platforms. So today we support the iOS App Store, Apple App Store, the Android Market, and then the Amazon Store for the Kindle, and the Nook apps, which are slightly different flavors of Android, and our developers are seeing great results there. And then we add all sorts of services as well after that. Like I said, monetization, as well as other things we're adding to the platform. So if you go to the next slide, we have tens of thousands of developers using Corona worldwide. Everything, literally everything from small independent guys that are just doing this on their extra time, to real game studios that are now standardizing on Corona, to publishers of books, to agencies. And so, for example, there's the movie The Lorax is coming out next month. Their app is done with Corona. The Dolphin Tale movie a month ago was done with Corona. A year ago, we had an app made by a 14-year-old called Bubble Ball that made it to the #1 free app on the App Store. It shows the power of anyone to build with Corona. There's an app right now called The Lost City, which made it to #2 in the Amazon App Store, #1 in the UK App Store. His previous app, Secret of Grizzly Manor, was #1 in the Amazon App Store recently, or one of the app stores. So we get all sorts of apps that make it to top charts every single week. That's a quick rundown. You actually do code, but it's very powerful, great performance, very easy to use, and applicable across all sorts of apps and developers.
And congratulations on a successful engine that is very well respected and also extremely well supported.
Hi, I'm Ben Savage. I'm the founder of Spaceport. Spaceport is a newer addition to the list of 2D engines we just launched at the end of last year. Spaceport is the engine for X-Flash developers. We are very, very specifically trying to make Flash developers able to publish cross-platform, high-performance games. Similarly, we support publishing to iOS, to Android, to Flash for web browsers, as well as HTML5. We already have a functioning Flash to Spaceport converter, which is up on our website that you can try out for free. You can continue to use the same Adobe tools that you're used to using, like the Flash IDE or Photoshop and Illustrator to create vector artwork, to create bitmap artwork, then run it through our engine, which, as you see in this video, automatically converts that into our format, which uses hardware acceleration to do all of the same vector graphics and animations that you're able to do in Flash. And by virtue of being hardware accelerated, our engine is all built in C++ and OpenGL. You get the best possible performance that you can on a mobile phone. So we expose pretty much the entire Flash API to you as a developer if you're coding. You can write your games once in JavaScript, which is way more similar to ActionScript compared to languages like Lua. It's ECMA, just like ActionScript is. We have an abstraction for doing classes and for modules, just like you would in ActionScript, and the full Flash API for things like movie clip and loader and stage, with all the same methods, the same properties that take the same arguments and do the same thing. So if you have an existing Flash game and you'd like to launch it on iOS and Android, Spaceport is the platform of choice. You can continue to use designer-oriented tools like the Flash IDE to create your artwork, as well as being able to code, and have those two work together nicely.
Okay, I have some questions for everybody there. And I sent these out beforehand, so it'd be fair, and everybody knew what the questions were asked to the different people. So GameSalad, I will start with you. First of all, interestingly, all three of these engines, although they've all decided to target the same platforms, Android, iOS, and typically HTML5, and then I'm sure they'll explore, they'll also probably check out which the TVs are working, and it wouldn't surprise me if something becomes popular that they support those too. But interestingly, they've all got three different ways of making money, and that's fascinating in some ways. And you, as a game developer, should probably be aware of that as you're making as you're trying to understand this. So, okay, GameSalad is probably the easiest to understand, because people maybe not, and then please educate us. Go ahead and tell us how
Sure.
your company makes
so
its
I think
money.
that similar to others, we do have an annual subscription fee for our pro version of our software. I think something that's relatively new that maybe Ann's not aware of is that we have a bunch of monetization services as well that are integrated right into the platform. So particularly in a drag and drop environment, and you're dealing with a developer base that may not be necessarily as sophisticated to do all the types of integrations with these SDKs and the monetization services, they can literally drag and drop these integrated forms of monetization. So if you want any type of ad, if we just partnered with a company called Keep, which is in-game achievements and sponsored achievements. We also partner with a company called Playhaven, which is kind of a cost per install referral network that monetizes extremely well. So we're able to go to these monetization partners, and with our scale, we're able to negotiate really aggressive rates with them. We still pass on to our developers the normal rate that they would have received had they done a direct deal, but we kind of get wholesale rates, and so we're able to monetize as well that way. And then we're also...
I'm sorry, can you go over that really quick again?
Sure.
What was that?
So if you want to just drag and drop these monetization services in there.
So like Keeps.
Exactly. Right. And then we're able to bring our scale to these advertising partners in our large developer base, and we're able to negotiate favorable rates and basically take the spread and then pass the rest on to our developers.
Okay.
And then on top of that, we'll be announcing kind of a series of distribution partnerships with large internet companies and international partnerships that will help bring distribution opportunities to our developer base, and we're able to basically monetize as that.
So I kind of stand corrected. They do have a model that people are going to recognize from Unity, the free or the paid, and you get more ways to make things with the paid, but they also have partnerships with people like Keep and in-game monetization and folks like that. So there's other ways to make money. Okay, Corona. This to me was fascinating, and I heard this and I thought, wow, this sounds like one of the most brilliant things I'd ever heard from a developer standpoint. So I was curious to explore it a little bit more. So go ahead and explain how your company makes its money. And when I was talking with you, you said that you had a solution based on rev share with a payment provider behind the scenes, and the developers, it's kind of free to use your platform. But I want to just probe that a little more and make sure that it really is free for developers before I go telling everybody, yeah, that one's free.
Right.
And please explain that. And also, it seemed really brilliant. And then at the same time, I'm wondering, okay, there are contingencies. What about the payment provider, and what happens if the horrible thing happens that happened like with Facebook, where Facebook said, all right, you must use our payment provider, and somebody from the mobile scene does that. So go ahead. That's a long statement. Okay. Go for it, and try to set us straight and educate us.
Sure. We're actually not that dissimilar from GameSalad.
Okay.
So if you're a developer and you come to our website, you can download Corona for free, and you can build anything you want to your own device and test it for as long as you want. But you do have to pay if you want to publish.
Okay.
So if you want to publish, the moment you're done with your app and you think it's ready, and you want to put it up on the App Store or the Android market or wherever, then you have to pay us a subscription. And so it's very similar in that way. And we have 2 levels of subscription today. There's an indie, which just means iOS or Android, one of the two. That's $199. If you want to do both, iOS and Android brings together Amazon and Nook, that's $349 per year. And that's it. And if you build the next Angry Birds, you paid $349. If you didn't do anything, you paid $349. That's the basic level. Now that we have a lot more studios, bigger studios using us, we also have an enterprise license, and that's it's an order of magnitude more expensive per seat, but it works similarly. It's a subscription. And then, sort of like GameSalad, which I think is what you were getting to, we do have partnerships with some monetization providers, and it's the same thing. I mean, we get a revenue share now. However, we don't take that away from the developer. The developer gets the exact same thing they would have gotten anyway by going directly to a mediation layer or an ad network or an in-app purchases provider, and we just get a share of what the provider gets, and that's it. And we were very clear that we don't want to take anything away from the developers. They shouldn't get less by going through Corona. And we have all these third parties.
The business side of me says that's brilliant.
Well,
like,
but it's the same as what they do. So
Yeah, but they're doing
so
it with.
it's not different.
You're
Yeah,
both
we
brilliant.
are.
All right. Okay.
No, it is.
But
I
in
mean,
different ways. All
It is,
right.
and it does allow us. I mean, both of us to try to make money on the upside without taking it away from the developer.
Okay, but then I'm wrong in thinking that you are free. You are.
We are not free.
You're paid.
If you want to publish, you have to pay. The question I think was what does seat mean? So if you buy a Corona SDK Pro subscription for $349, that's for one developer. So if you have 5 developers in your studio and they're all going to use Corona, you'd need 5 of those. As many apps as you want and as popular as you can make them.
And so one quick thing, which to also clarify, if tomorrow, like you're on, because I think when I talked to you, you said one of the arrangements you have right now is with an independent provider, and if tomorrow they get stomped on by, say, let's say Google says you must use AdMob or whoever they're using, then whatever that's happening behind the scenes, probably the developers would not see. You would be making other arrangements.
Well, we can integrate any third party. We do it in a way that abstracts out a lot of the complexity. So in theory, it's possible the developer might not even notice, although that might be a little tough. But yeah, I mean, we could integrate with Apple, for example. There's no in-app purchase option, but them, right?
Right.
Whereas on Android, you can use
Yes.
Google Checkout, but also other options. So
Right.
yeah, we try to make that as transparent as possible to the developer.
Okay. But the point was that tomorrow Google may decide, oh, we can, yeah, and this happens. I mean, it happened in Facebook where all of a sudden the platform says, oh, well, we can also make all the money off of the monetization scheme. So that can happen.
I have a question. So if I'm a developer and I use Corona and I build a game and I put it on iOS and I use in-app purchases, the iOS in-app purchases, you're not taking anything. It's just 30%?
Yeah, that's between you and Apple.
All right.
Yeah.
So Spaceport, explain how your company makes its money. And go ahead, and I'm not going to try to paraphrase it for you because it might have changed, and I got it wrong on the other two.
So ours is pretty simple. We just want to do a 10% rev share of net revenues. So Spaceport is free to download the SDK. It's free to build and test as many things as you want on your own phones. And it's actually free to publish too. So you can stick a game in the App Store, in iOS App Store, the Android App Store, the Amazon App Store, and you don't have to pay anything to do that. If your game never makes a cent of money, you never pay me a cent of money. If your game is tremendously successful, good for you. So let's say that your game makes $100,000. Apple takes $30,000 of that. And then of the remaining $70,000, $7,000 to me, $6,300 to you. So just simple 10% of net. Sorry, 63,000. 63,000 to you, 7,000 to me. Thank God, no. I'm just the founder. So pretty simple. And I
don't feel so bad now.
that was wrong slip of the tongue. Okay. And then the other thing is I don't want to have my team going around collecting checks for $15 all day. So until you owe me $1,000, I don't want to bother collecting any money from you. So if your game makes $10,000 of net revenue after Apple/Google/Amazon takes their cut, great. Then you owe me a check for $1,000. And if your game never makes $10,000 of net revenue, then you never have to pay me a cent.
All right. So the important thing is if you're using Spaceport, make it so that on paper you only only earn $9,999, and it's free.
We also have plugins to support various third-party providers. If you want to like charge 99 cents for your game, that's fine. If you want to do in-app purchases with Google or Apple, that's fine. If you want to do ads, we're making plugins for various ad providers. If you want to use someone, just tell me. We'll make a plugin for them. I don't really want to limit options on that.
Okay.
We already have a plugin for like Chart Boost for doing ads. I've had the best success doing in-app purchases, so that's kind of what I presume other people might want to do. But if you really want to do something else, let me know.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much. At least that helped straighten things out in my head. Did it help anybody else on understanding the different ways? One quick question.
How do you verify the?
That's a good question. So we kind of have to trust you a little bit. So we had to have a little bit of a trust relationship. So with Spaceport, you're writing your game in JavaScript. So if you want to access native functionality for things like payment integration, you have to go through a plugin. And so we wrote the payment plugin. And our payment plugin just pings our server and says, so-and-so spent this much money in this game at this time, bought this virtual good. So we have a little record on our server that's only visible to you and us, that you can log in and see nice little pretty graphs of, oh, this is how much money I made on each day. And that gives us a sense of how much money your game should have made. Now, of course, you have to pay VAT tax, there's chargebacks, there's fraudulent transactions. So you're not going to realize 100% of that is real income. So there's sort of like industry standard metrics that we figure out after publishing games of what percent on average of transactions are fraudulent and whatever. So if you tell me I made X dollars and that looks about like an industry standard normal, oh yeah, that's the right percent of fraudulent, then I'll believe you. And if you tell me that you had 99.9% fraudulent transactions, I probably won't believe you. The question was, if someone was to try your platform, why would they decide to not use it?
I'll jump in. So, being a visual-based software, there are some kind of limitations around that. Part of our roadmap, certainly a big emphasis of ours is extending the power of that, but there's certain game types that we can't support today. Certain things that you need to get down to the metal and actually code with. So we do see some people that are like, hey, I wish I could do this. I can't do this with GameSalad. But for the most part, again, we're seeing tons of success stories and people hitting the top 10, top 20 in the App Store. So we're targeting that audience that feels comfortable working around some of those limitations.
Okay.
I'll say a quick thing. So I think you're going to ask something about Lua later, so I'll sort of allude to that. You are coding with ours. You can do almost anything. We'll talk about Lua in a second. But if you wanted to do something that needs real-time stuff, if you wanted to do a communications client, we'd tell you have to go native. Other than that, you can build almost anything you want with Corona in Lua, and many of the top games out there, like Angry Birds, is built using Lua. So it's not a restriction. The only other thing is we do have to enable access to third-party services. So if you come to me and you say, I want to use this very super niche-y Asian ad network, and it's not one of our priorities, we're not going to build it in today. We are coming up with a plugin framework relatively soon, as that problem's going to go away. But there is some restriction on what third-party services you might be able to use today, for example.
Okay, great. All right. Love to hear from all three of you on what you think the greatest strength of your platform is in comparison to the other 2D engines.
Oh, do you want me to answer why people wouldn't use Spaceport first?
Oh, all right.
Okay, we don't support 3D. So if you want to build a 3D game, I don't recommend using Spaceport. But we're on the 2D shootout, so. So right now, you don't have options for languages. You have to use JavaScript. Some people really dislike JavaScript. It's a dynamic language. So if you're not into dynamic languages, then you might not like that. I like JavaScript. It takes some getting used to. Let's see, other reasons to not like Spaceport.
Okay, that's okay.
I think those are the main things.
All right. Okay. So greatest strength of your platform in comparison to other 2D engines. Go ahead.
I just always seem to kick these off. So I would say, at the heart of it, GameSalad is about accessibility, and it's making, complex game smartphone applications accessible to the 99% of the population that doesn't know how to code. So we really appeal to that market. It's a no-brainer. And I think for those that are comfortable around coding, it's really, the multi-platform support and the speed of development, and they're able to iterate quicker on our platform.
I think the major strength of Spaceport in comparison to every other game framework is the support for hardware-accelerated vector graphics, which is very rare. Vector graphics are great for a lot of reasons. Way smaller download sizes. They use a ton less RAM. And you can have as many frames of animation as you want with very little overhead, because each frame is just a matrix for how something's scaled on each frame. And you can support any screen resolution, no matter how big you want to make the thing. If you're using sprite sheets, you run out of space really fast. And you have tons of RAM used in these giant things. So if you have a lot of animations, you want to put something on a smart TV, something with enormous screen size, or at tablets and stuff, it's really nice to have hardware-accelerated vector graphics and performance. Our thing is just like one call away from OpenGL. Drawing your vector graphics is just a single GL draw command. We convert things into vertex buffers, so it's just like really, really close to the hardware. And in your, if you turn on the debug console when you're running your game, you can see the number of GL draw commands that are being made, the number of vertices, the number of indices. So you get pretty low-level debugging. You're very close to the GL, although you're nicely abstracted away into a scripting language of JavaScript.
And strength for us, I think it's the combination of, well, we're not drag and drop, it is development. We have proof points that show, a 14-year-old kid in Utah did bubble ball and got to #1. And so it's accessible, it's easy to use, we abstract a lot of complexity out, yet we have great performance. And you can build almost anything. And we have example of apps that you would never imagine it's anything but native. There's really no difference. So it's a combination of ease of use and speed of development with still high performance.
Okay, and I'm going to go through all the stereotypes quickly with these 3 engines, and hopefully they're going to set up us straight a little bit. So I'm doing a word on the street, greatest weakness. I think you've hit it a little bit already on GameSalad. Word on the street is a fabulous place to start and definitely the best for non-coders, but it's limiting if you need more advanced features. And so, the thought is, okay, fine, it's hard to be both super easy and super detail controllable. Where do you see GameSalad concentrating in the future, and is it in that area and just saying, hey, we own it, or are you trying to expand more into other areas?
It's a really tough problem to solve, is making something complex like coding accessible to large audience. So that was step 1. And then now it's moving up the power curve and providing more powerful features that will appeal to more traditional hardcore developers. I would say also, admittedly, a weakness of ours today, because we have Lua in our engine, is performance in terms of just load times and file sizes and things like that. So we have a beta version out now. It'll be released in the next month or so. We've stripped out our Lua, and now we're compiling down to native. So we'll be able to perform just as fast as the Unities of the world. So I think come this time of year from now, getting more power features and having optimal performance of our engine, it will definitely be moving up that curve to appeal to more professional developers.
Okay, Corona, and some people will argue this is a strength too, but there are a ton of web developers out there, and I'm one of them. Okay, biased, and I run the Games.js, just to get that out there, group in San Francisco. So that I'm obviously not fair, but the word on the street is one word: Lua. Why did you not use the lingua franca of the web, JavaScript?
Well, it's not. I won't get into discussion of which one is better because, everyone knows that you'll argue to the death. I think, our founders came from Adobe, and they were the heads of the lead architect and head engineer of Flashlight, and so they knew the restrictions of working in a small space like a mobile device and the performance requirements. And for example, Adobe Lightroom is 3/4 built in Lua. We like to say it's the language that is. It's the most used language you've never heard of, because in gaming it's been used for a long time. And as I mentioned, Angry Birds is built on a architecture that looks just like Corona does, and we enable for any developer. So it's very easy to learn. So we never thought that picking it up would be a restriction. I've already given an example of 14-year-old kid can pick it up and build a #1 game. So it's very easy to learn, very fast to develop in. And it had other architectural benefits, and performance hasn't been an issue for us. So, it's just one versus the other, I guess.
Okay. All right, Spaceport, word on the street. No easy graphical entry point to get designers hooked. The assumption is you already know Flash, and the rev share model people aren't as familiar with. But go ahead with the first one on the no easy graphical entry point, and it's sort of like this. As it was explained to me by somebody in the hackathon, it's sort of like this really fast car that people can't figure out how to drive at first.
Well, I sort of agree and sort of disagree about the first point. So, like I mentioned earlier, we support use of the Flash Pro IDE. So, that's, as far as designers go, about the best tool out there, which is why we decided to support it. So, if you're just authoring an animation in Flash, like we took all the strong bad email SWFs and ran them through our converter and got them running on iPads. We took everything off of, sort of something off, all kinds of forums of various funny Flash and albino black sheep and stuff, and those all work in Spaceport, which is kind of cool that those automatically work. If you're trying to build a game, you're gonna have to code. So if you want to code, you're gonna have to know how to code. But if you want to just get artwork running through, you can use the best designer tool around, which is the Flash Pro. What was your second point? Your second point was.
Yeah, but if you're, which means that there's no easy entry point unless you already know Flash and you know that, okay, I'm supposed to use the Flash.
Oh yeah, Flash.
With this.
So I agree. We were very specific in trying to target Flash developers.
Almost of GameSalad. I mean,
Yes.
you know.
So we very specifically are trying to
and-
target the Flash
Got
developer.
it.
So our API is one-on-one identical with the Flash API. I kind of assume that you know ActionScript 3's API, things like movie clip and display object container and loader and all those interfaces, which takes some time to learn. There's a lot of great resources on the web for learning about Flash development, and there's lots of great work that's already out there in terms of games that have been built on that framework. I think it's a good framework that leverages well between being high enough level that it doesn't spend a ton of time like writing sound playing libraries like C, but low enough level that you can get your hands dirty if you really want to work well. But yes, if you're not familiar with the Flash API, it's kind of, some things about it are a little bit awkward. And rev share model, I guess, perhaps to some people is a little bit odd. I've always liked that model because everyone's interests are aligned. We are only making money if you're being successful. So I've liked that together.
Okay, and I think I'm over time, but I hope that was fun and interesting for people, and we had some cross talk. Thank you. Thank you all very much for being good sports and educating people.
We are, yeah.